Into all of this with our first guest, Chad Park, the CEO of the online 401k. So I'll ask you the big question, what if the government shuts down at midnight?
Well, obviously, we'll be talking more about this for days to come. I think that the real issue at hand is really what's going on with the Congress and what stalemate are they under themselves right now.
The Senate didn't show up yesterday, so now they have a meeting later this afternoon. Will they agree on something? What's the likelihood?
I mean, they're absolutely playing games. You remember the sequester? That was a self-imposed rule to them to say, hey, if we don't pass this annual budget in years past, let's force ourselves to reduce spending. Well, the sequester came and took effect, and yet have you seen anybody talk about sequester in a while? It sort of just stayed there, business as usual. So,
are you saying business as usual right now?
I think as far as the Congress goes, obviously they're playing with some very big stakes, and those stakes are people's paychecks and the ability for the government to function normally.
So say the government does shut down. Tomorrow morning, when 2 million federal workers wake up to go to work, who's going to work, who's not going to work?
In the first few days, everyone will go to work. That is a given. The problem is that they may not be able to cash their paycheck. So they're going to be told, please come in, we're going to get this settled soon, but just don't cash that check yet. Assuming that they can't get to an agreement within a few days, then we start to see a phased-in closure of government services.
So there's some leeway.
Yes, there's absolutely some leeway, and you'll see even in the continuing resolution, the CR, that they passed as part of playing games with not setting on an annual budget, they've allowed for military pay to continue. So there's that, and then of course the president has priorities that they can continue to fund. Things that are essential services such as Homeland Security, FBI.
Fully funded?
Well, see, it's a very tricky sort of subject, right? I mean, there's really no money there to even pay them, so it's a matter of, what are we doing here? So,
but we know absolutely getting furloughed, services not being performed include which ones?
Not being performed as we enter into a phase-down approach would be what we consider non-essential services. So things like the Department of Interior, agriculture, labor, certain elements of the Social Security Administration. The checks they promise will keep going out, but those people hitting 65 to 10,000 a day, their applications will be delayed.
Right, so, visa applications, passport applications, small business loans, mortgage applications, parks closed, NASA furloughed.
Yeah, pretty much. You don't realize how far-reaching the federal government is in your day-to-day life until they disappear.
Yeah, up to half of federal workers, up to 1 million could be
50% of the 2 million, so 1 million could be furloughed for some period of time.
Okay, and now people are going to think I'm crazy, but all that fine, whatever, we can deal with that. The real issue, and this might be why the market's off lows, is not about this shutdown. It's about what could happen in mid-October.
That's right. I mean, so let's remind everybody that this is about the annual budget. That, just like you have a household budget, you try to sit down and you say, hey, what are we going to earn this year? What are we going to spend this year? And then let's approve that and move forward. Well, that's what we're arguing over right now. In less than about 2 weeks' time, we're going to be back to the table again with raising the debt ceiling. So even if we pass the annual budget, what's going to be interesting is the Treasury won't have any money to actually enforce or implement the budget.
So if we agree on the budget, which comes today, we get this last-minute deal. Okay, fine, yay. Gates of heaven open, we have an agreement.
But we don't have any money to spend.
But that's just in theory, because October 17th-ish is when we run out of money.
That's right, the debt ceiling that we hit again. So that's, our debt now is at $16.7 trillion. We keep raising that and raising that. Yeah, I like to put that into perspective. What does that mean to every man, woman, and child in the country? Well, 316 million people approximately. That's about $55,000 per person that we are saddled with that
debt. So babies owe how much?
$55,000.
$55,000.
At the moment they're born, they're in debt $55,000. Now that's just what's on the surface. That's just what we know. If you really want to go off on a limb here, you got to look at all the other unfunded liabilities that the government has, and that is really nobody talks about this, but there's another 65 to 70 trillion dollars of unfunded liabilities, which include health, pensions, other expenditures that they promised to pay but later, and then if you include
retirees,
and for retirees of the federal government. And if you look at the other states and municipalities like Detroit, that's been in the news lately, you add it all up, and you're looking at about $100 trillion of unfunded future liabilities.
Ouch.
And that's about $300,000 per person, or 1.2 million for a family of four.
It's a lot of numbers, and it's a lot of headaches for people. But I think, because we get lost in all the numbers, myself
well, I just got lost in it myself. Million, trillion, billion, what's the difference, right?
What is the point here that people need to know, and what is the message to Washington?
There's two things. First and foremost, you as an individual, you've got to stop outsourcing your future to those 450 some odd people in Washington and the 100 in the Senate that run our lives. We have to take control of that. And how do you do that, is a big question. We need to become more active and more involved and we need to really demand that they stop screwing around with our futures and our country.
And work like a family who balances the checkbook.
That's right.
And
Work
knows
like a
how
family.
much money needs to go for the going out to dinner and for the kids' school.
You just can't keep spending. I mean, put it back to that family, and that's what can you do? You know, all of us, if we all lived as irresponsibly as our government did, it would be complete chaos. So what can you do? You can start saving, and saving every penny and nickel and dime that you can in any vehicle that's available to you. A tax-deferred vehicle like a 401k or an IRA, or definitely, sock some away.
I agree, save, but the flip side of that is the economy needs us to spend.
Therein lies the ultimate conundrum, isn't it? We're a spend-based economy, and we love to spend, and we're dependent upon that. But the reality is we need to save at the same time, so how do we do it?
I know. And, if you circle back 2 summers ago when we had the debt ceiling debate in August of 2011, do you remember what the market did then? I think the Dow fell like 600 points on
absolute
on one
uncertainty. And this is just the U.S. market. We can't forget about the global markets.
If we have the Dow fall 600 points in mid-October when we fail to raise the debt ceiling, if that should happen, if the Dow were to have such a drop like that in this economic environment, kind of getting better, not really conflicting data.
Yeah.
What happens?
One step forward, 2 steps back. People look at their 401ks again and say, shoot, I thought I was making progress, and now I'm down again. And then you get into that psychological tailspin.
And that's what's so amazing, that your 401k looks good right now. It's up like 20% along with the broader market. So as we enter the final quarter of the year tomorrow, maybe people are going to say, you know what, take the money off the table, let's book our 20% gain and call it a day.
Then that exacerbates a sell-off.
Chad Park, President and CEO of the online 401k. That was great. Thanks for breaking us down. Sorry to make you nervous out there, but I think we just said, don't worry about the shutdown, worry about the debt ceiling debate. So we've got more weeks of volatility.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Chad.